The Shattered Throne is the easiest it's ever been, outside of the Revelry of course. We have so many strong weapons to play with in the endgame, and more things than ever are viable in PvE. Yeah, a few things could use some love, especially exotics. But right now, there are so many viable weapons, a lot of them not just viable, but also really good. Things like fusion rifles, SMGs, sidearms, grenade launchers, machine guns, snipers, scouts, heck even swords aren't that bad right now. And I wanted to bring this up because I'll be using a variety of weapons in my loadout for these throne runs that you may not be comfortable with using, or don't have. You can honestly bring anything into this dungeon and make it work, I just want to stress that. That said, I'll still try to provide some suggestions and bring up some hot items to use, since the game has shifted quite a bit since my last guide. Most of the footage is going to be on my Titan, and later on I'll cut to some footage of my other characters, but this plays almost the exact same way on all characters, with a few differences depending on your subclasses. Timestamps are on the screen now if you're looking for a specific encounter. One of the things I'll be doing in this guide is switching up my weapons between encounters. If you're going for a flawless run, you'll want to either avoid this or switch early enough before getting to a boss fight. If you're not attempting flawless, remember you can leave at each checkpoint to get ammo or take a break. First encounter is the Symbol Maze. Just like in my last guide, I'm going to assume you actually know how to beat this dungeon already, and I'm not going to spend time explaining it. My loadout consisted of Night Watch, the Lord of Wolves, and 21% Delirium. You definitely want something long range to take out snipers, that's a must. Either a scout rifle, pulse rifle, a bow, or even a sniper. Lord of Wolves is probably the best special weapon you could bring to this first encounter. Thanks to the recent changes to release the wolves, you actually don't even need to get a kill to switch the firing modes. As soon as you spawn in, you can hold reload to activate this Release the Wolves perk, and this means the Lord of Wolves is now going to fire 10 shots from a single trigger pull when the perk is active. This is devastating against the mini-bosses, and with Lord of Wolves being currently the highest DPS special weapon in the game, you might want to consider trying it out. Weapons such as Jotun, Merciless, a rapid-fire shotgun like the Ikelos one, and a rapid-fire fusion rifle are also great options. The power slot is really anything goes here. There are so many strong weapons, and I've used just about all of them in this dungeon, and they're all pretty solid. Machine guns, grenade launchers, and even swords are probably the best legendary options currently, with the Sleeper Simulant, Anarchy, Legend of Acreus, Prospector, and Thunderlord being the best of the exotics. What's nice about this pairing of Lord of Wolves and 21% Delirium is that it covers the arc and solar shields found within the maze. There's only 3 solar shielded captains and 1 arc shielded centurion, with every other enemy being unshielded, so planning for shields is not hugely important, but having something like Delirium and Lord of Wolves just gives you that extra bonus. Anything goes when it comes to subclasses. You'll hear me say that a few times throughout this entire dungeon. All of them work really well. I personally really enjoyed using Bottom Tree Striker with Syntheseps. It was a great alternative to my Bottom Tree Sentinel with Doomfang approach that I usually use in most activities. The only other suggestion I want to add is having as many of those Transcendent Blessing mods as you can. These Dreaming City mods come from the Purification Ritual bounties, and they help so much. Stacking 5 of them will increase your damage by some crazy amount, and these mods are invaluable for solo runs. I'm going to let the rest of this encounter play out, and I'll catch back up with you guys when we get to the descent. The Descent is mostly a range-heavy encounter, and the only thing I switched up here was going from Lord of Wolves to Jotun. This was mainly for the Ogre section afterwards, but having the extra range was definitely nice. If you're feeling ballsy, you could just skip this entire section with something like Dawnblade, and you can even skip the next section if you've got the Lion Rampant Boots on your Titan, although I didn't try that in this video. I don't really have much to say from here until we get to the Ogre boss fight, so just enjoy the footage or skip to the Ogre fight at the time shown now. The Vorgeth fight is certainly one of the most challenging things to overcome solo. Taken wizards, taken ogres, taken vandals, all the worst kind of enemies in one place. The best way to approach this fight is to take out as many of the red bar enemies as possible, and then go around the room in a circle taking down the wizards one by one. Killing a wizard and then moving on to the next group of enemies puts you under a lot of pressure thanks to the buff timer. So if you're not comfortable with being rushed, save the wizards until the very end. My loadout for this fight was Arbalest, Recluse, and Swarm of the Raven. Arbalest is really good in the current sandbox and hits not only the wizards hard, but also the boss. I tried using Izanagi's Burden here with the Catalyst completed, and it was also very, very good. The only downside to using Recluse on console is the recoil limits the range a lot, and so you'll have to play a little riskier with it, getting up close, and you might be uncomfortable with that if you're not familiar with the encounter. If you prefer being on the safe side, use something with more range like the Void Bow Subtle Calamity, or the Year 1 Pulse Rifle Inaugural Address, or any sort of Void Scout Rifle or something like that. Loaded Question, Lord of Wolves, Jotun, Merciless, and a rapid-fire shotgun, fusion, or sniper rifle with triple tap can also help you get the job done, as all of those special weapons can dish out a lot of damage. If you're trying to maximize your damage to do the most you possibly can and have an easy one phase, use an aggressive frame grenade launcher with spike grenades in your heavy slot paired with the Season 6 Pinnacle Crucible weapon Mountaintop. Or you could pair Anarchy and Mountaintop together, that's also a really good combo. There are many things you can use to one phase, especially in the power and special slots, so many good weapons to choose from. If you're a warlock who plans to post up in a Well of Radiance with Lunafaction boots for the damage phase, consider trying out Legend of Acreus. Here's a clip of it in action. This clip and the one I just showed are perfect examples of how you can pretty much use anything. I'm doing crazy damage with my sword here, and I was able to get a one phase even with forgetting to put on the 5th Transcendent Blessing mod, which means I could have killed him even quicker. Honestly, this bubble sword strat was really fun, and I'm actually happy to see swords getting more action in the endgame. Like I said, the throne has never been easier. So if you've got some time, try experimenting with some different weapons and see which one you enjoy using most. And that's pretty much all you need to know about this fight. I'll return with some suggestions on the next encounter in a little bit. The Ascent, as I like to call it, is basically just a ton of enemies and some jumping sections. If you're going for flawless, you'll want to switch your weapons up for the final boss now, so that you can farm ammo up until you get there. But if you're not, just put on Rat King to run past everyone. Getting a kill and reloading with Rat King makes you invisible, so take advantage of this to skip all the enemies until the boss section. The final encounter against the wizard Dul Incaru is, in my opinion, way less hectic than the Ogre fight, and if you made it past the Ogre solo, you can totally do this with no problem. Tether, Bottom Tree Striker, Well of Radiance, Nova Warp, Stormcaller, again, it doesn't really matter. Use what you're comfortable with, and what's going to keep you alive. As for weapons, I went with Izanagi's Burden, Loaded Question, and Swarm of the Raven. The boss fight requires two main things: a strong weapon to damage knights and the boss, and a weapon you can use to clear out the scions. Now, if you use your super to clear out the scions, that basically leaves you with an open slot to use whatever you want in it, and that's why I chose two special weapons. Risk Runner can help you clear out the scions if you're using Well of Radiance or Tether, the only downside being you can't use a strong exotic weapon like Izanagi's or Sleeper or Whisper. The reason I chose Izanagi's Burden is because I wanted to test out the new catalyst and see how much health it took away from the boss. Turns out it's stupidly good. In this encounter, I was able to kill all of the scions with my Striker super, allowing me to clean up the knights with either Loaded Question or my grenade launcher. If you're a hunter, you should start by tethering the group of knights and either shooting them with your special or heavy weapon. Using your heavy and transcendent blessing mods, you should be able to get each knight's health down pretty low. You should definitely tether again as well if they escape or if there's a bunch of scions still running around. If you're in a Well of Radiance, I would suggest putting it on top of one of the groups of scions on either side of the room. This gives you a chance to clear out one group quickly and have some distance between you and the knights, as well as being safe from the boss. This encounter isn't really that bad if you can kill all three knights at around the same time in order to pick up all three buffs and get Finite Thought times 3. Stacked up to ×3, really any special weapon could easily kill her, let alone a heavy weapon. And that's pretty much it for Shattered Throne Solo as of June 2019. Still one of my favorite activities ever in Destiny, and I cannot wait for the new dungeon in September. If you're interested, I could do a speedrunning guide for the throne. That'd be probably a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and if you'd like to see more guides like this, consider giving this channel a sub and turn on notifications so you don't miss all of my new content for Destiny 2.